Hi there, I'm BJ Jones. I'm the artistic director of Northlight Theater, and welcome to At Home with BJ. Many of you have subscribed to Northlight for quite some time, and you got an opportunity, I think about 9 years ago, to see Bruce Graham's wonderful play, Outgoing Tide, which to date is the biggest seller in our history, and it starred the late John Mahoney and Tony Award winner Ronnie Reed and Tom Cox. And I want to introduce our pal Bruce right now. How you doing?
The whole panel. Good, Peach. How you doing?
Good. As you can see, I'm not at the theater.
Right. I wish I could do that. I have trouble just turning this thing on. So.
No, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce, it's exciting to be able to put this on the web for folks to take a look at.
Yeah.
And it was 9 years ago, and we got the opportunity to do it in Galway as well. So some of our friends in Galway may be seeing this as well. And Paul Fahey, who runs the Galway International Theatre Festival, Arts Festival, will be making it available to a lot of his subscribers as well.
You know, we've gotten a few productions in Ireland because of that.
It was a great production.
Yeah.
And a really successful there, and we loved going to the Galway Arts Festival.
We did, yeah.
It was great.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'd relive our history a little bit. First of all, I met Bruce. When did we do Belmont Avenue Social
It was my daughter, who is now 29, was 10 months old. So do the math, about 27, 28 years ago, yeah.
And that was it was about politics and local politics,
Mm-hmm.
set in the back room of a social club, which they have more of in Philadelphia than they have in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And it dealt with political machinations, although they're, in that way, Philadelphia and Chicago, old school politics, Chicago.
Right. And I actually let Mike Nussbaum directed it and wanted to set it in Chicago.
Yeah.
I never said it specifically. And so way in the back, there was a daily poster and like going down the shore was going down a lake, it was like little references, bucket of crabs, a basket of crabs became a bucket of clams, or I forget, but yeah. They kind of rewrote it with my permission.
Yeah. So that's the first time I met you. You came out for the opening. Yep. And when I became artistic director at Northlight, we were very ambitious in terms of our desire to do new work. And I gave you a call and said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I said, you got anything on the typewriter? Remember typewriters?
Yes, I do.
And it seems to me that I think I said something like the first play, was it Berkey, your first play?
First professionally produced play, Berkey, yeah.
Which was at the Philadelphia New Plays Festival?
Philadelphia Festival for New Plays, where I had, I think, 12 plays done in 14 years. Some of them shouldn't have been done. There were some real bombs in there. But that's where I kind of learned my craft, and they were very supportive.
And you were artistic director for a while, too.
I was terrible, yeah. With the caveat that we would not do my plays as long as I was artistic director. But I couldn't raise a dime. I have trouble asking my wife for money. So it's like I'm not good at raising money.
Well, but I remember saying to you that Berkey was one of your plays that was one of my favorites, and I think you came back and said you wanted to take another look at it because there are elements of Berkey that were found in Outgoing Tide. Let's talk a little bit about Outgoing Tide. Give me your
well, the you get smarter as a playwright, you hope. And I looked at some of Berkey, and that kind of always stuck with me about end-of-life issues, although that wasn't what it was really about to me. To me, the play was about regret, getting kind of toward the end. Every parent, every husband, every wife, whatever, looks back eventually, they have half a brain, and says, gee, I wish I'd done that differently. And that's what I really wanted to do with this. It's like taking Berkey 20 years later and hopefully being a lot smarter about it. And you had called me and said, John Mahoney would love to do a play. Do you have anything? And I said, yeah, I do, and I'm going to write it this summer. And you said, can you write it now? Do you want to maybe do it next? I went, so I sent you the worst version ever, saying, for God's sake, burn this after John sees it. If you ever bring this up again, our friendship is over. It was just awful. But it gave you a gist of what was going to happen. It kind of told the story in a very clumsy way. And so that's where it came from. I've always been kind of worried about, I was worried about my father, especially, what I was going to do when he got older. He's not the type to go into assisted living. He has his own ideas about things, which would not go over well in assisted living. And so there it was, and I love ripping off insurance companies. Not that I've ever done it or anything, but I have friends who may have. And, it's like the ultimate scam, kind of, the whole, I'm going to commit suicide, but you guys are going to get a couple $1 million. So there's kind of some wish fulfillment there too, I guess. And I also wanted to look at a marriage that on the surface might not look like it's that happy, but underneath, yeah, it's just 50 years, every day is not going to be, the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. But underneath there's this, love and responsibility that, this particular breed of people from the time and the neighborhood they were born in lived with. I saw it firsthand,
It's also a father-son story as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's an element of the tug and pull of the play seems to be the son understanding where the father is at, and then
and also kind of the father realizing, we all do it as parents, the impact you may have on your kid's life, pro or con. That you think, oh my God, I did everything right. I wish I hop in a time machine and do that differently. Yeah. And that's what Gunner's kind of seeing at the end, and is amazed that his son doesn't hate him, and he doesn't. There's no hate in this play at all. But there's people who can go at each other. Yeah.
Yeah, John was remarkable in the piece.
The whole cast was remarkable.
Yeah, and I think the consensus was that John, some of the best work in his career, and he loved doing the play. Rondi was doing a television show, Mike and Molly, at the time, right. And I think we started rehearsal with Penny Slusher.
Yeah, I'd stepped in for a few days. Yeah,
stepped in for a few days just to sort of walk through the play and ask some questions around the table, and then she was very generous with her time, and then Rondi had to run to play catch up, and she did a remarkable job. Also, I have to say, I think it was a year later that we took Outgoing Tide to. Right. Was it?
Yeah, it was the next summer. Yeah.
Yeah, the next summer, and. Thank goodness we had Tom Cox, because he remembered everything we did, even though everything was written down.
Tom was a rock. He really was.
Yeah, he was a rock. And particularly,
and Rita, our stage manager,
it was a wonderful job.
For those of you who remember the play, this is the actual set where Gunner would fish and everything. This is my house on Locust Point, Maryland, it's called. And I got the fishing stuff out there. In fact, I was fishing just earlier. And this is where I set it. And when we rehearsed the play for the Philadelphia production, the cast actually came down and did 2 run-throughs in the house, which was Pirandello-esque, like you wouldn't believe. It was very, and I'm trying to stay out of the way I'm hiding in my office. I didn't want to get in the way. So it was a theatrical experience. I wish I could have filmed that. That was really interesting.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me, and you talked about doing 12 plays in 14 years or whatever it was at the Philadelphia Festival of New Plays, and that's pumping them out.
And I was learning my craft. I'm untrained. My training was as an actor, and the more I did it, the easier it got. Like I said, there were some years I should have just said, I don't have an idea, but I did anyway. And I learned, sometimes you learn more from the bad plays than you do from the good ones. I tell my students, you go see a play, a good play, you walk out and go, yeah, I like that. You go see a bad play, you're figuring out why it was bad. And sometimes you learn more from that. You know, oh my God, I didn't like the characters. There was no conflict. It was too long, you know, and that sort of stuff. And so it was a great education for me. I'll say that. I wrote a couple of good plays in there, and then some that were okay. And it ran the gamut from F to A, I thought. But every play was a learning experience.
When we did a interplay reading of Outgoing Tide with John,
Mhm.
and I think Deanna Dunnigan, Tony Award winner Deanna Dunnigan from August Osage County, also from August Osage County,
Jeez, I
and
didn't
I think
realize that.
Tom Cox, yeah, did the reading here at Northlight. And in that version, and that was one of the early versions, Tom's character did direct address to the
Yes,
audience.
I know. I hated that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you took all of that and folded the envelope in so that the play was more dialogue oriented. And
Right. Well, that was because I was kicking it out so quickly. You know, and I'm always telling my students, you know, don't narrate. If you're going to have a narration, you're going to have somebody break the fourth wall, do it for character reasons. Don't do it to tell the story. It's a cheap device. Don't do it. And but I did it because I was just trying to get the play done as quickly as possible. And the first thing, I think I got on the plane to go back to Philly, the first thing I was doing was, you know, like got a razor blade out and just attacked and cut
but
all
there
that
were
stuff out.
but there were a number of there was information, emotional beats, and some comedy
Mhm.
that were in that you got
Oh,
down on paper that you were able to then transpose into the
yeah.
plot.
Just put it into dramatic form, you know, but have two characters do it instead of one, you know, don't tell show. And if you've got a line that got a laugh, work it in somehow. You know, so get a crowbar and a can of CRC, but get it in there. Yeah.
And there were flashbacks as well in the play.
Yeah, the flashbacks are always in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's right out of you know, I've never written a play yet where I didn't steal, you know, kind of from somebody, you know, whether it was the flashbacks from Death of a Salesman or the narration from Class Menagerie. If you're going to steal from good plays.
Yeah. A lot of we hear this a lot. A lot of folks want to know about idea. Where do you get the instigation? Where's the idea come from? You did a play with us called Stella and Lou, which had Rhea Perlman in it, and from Cheers, and Fran Guinan, and so that play actually came from a film script of yours.
Right. My mother died kind of young. She was 56, and you know, and I was lucky, so I don't have a Pulitzer. I had a happy childhood. My parents, I think, were very much in love, and my father was devastated. He's only like 57 when it happens. And like 2 years later, he came and asked my permission to go on a date with a woman who lived right in the neighborhood. I kind of knew all my life, and he goes, "Why didn't you think anything was going on there?" It's like, if there was, when? You went to work, you came home, you know.
And her name was Blanche, right?
Blanche, yes. And what a name. And it really fit her, too. She was great. They were together 27 years. And thank God for Blanche. And very happy together. But I thought, wow, you know, let's take maybe a guy who's been devastated and doesn't want to get back into life. And this woman who kind of comes in and forces him to at least try. And that's where it came from. To answer your question, where do ideas come from? Well, that's one. I do a lecture with my students where there's three basic places I get my idea. One is observation or what I've lived. The other, in the case of, say, Coyote on a Fence or A White Guy on a Bus, comes from something I read in the paper or a magazine or something, and then immediately start researching it. But it's got to have a dramatic idea in it. I don't want to get on a soapbox. I hate being preached to in the theater, and I try not to do it. In Coyote on a Fence, which won a couple Jeffs, I know one for Steve Key. The theory was that this guy was on death row writing death row obituaries and always trying to find something good about the people he was writing about, although they were monsters. And I went, well, I literally ran across, you know, out of my recliner and cut the story out and then wrote to a guy on death row for 2 years. So, you know, look at your own life, eavesdrop, observe, or go out and look around, you know, for a story. You know, they're there. And that's why I read like 6 newspapers a day looking for stuff. And the third one is write what gets you angry. You know, if I wasn't a playwright, I'd probably be a sniper or a serial killer or something. You know, it's like I've gotten all my aggressions out, well, most of them.
This is great. You know, I'm glad you're telling people this. That's great.
Clean criminal record, man. 63 clean criminal record. I'm okay. But it really, I play early one evening at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. This guy comes in with a shotgun with a whole list of people he wants to shoot, and they were all members of the Rose Tree Media School Board. I was a teacher at the time, fighting with these people, so I just put their names in and killed them. You know, 8 shows a week. So you know, I felt better, and I knew they weren't going to buy a ticket to my play, so I was safe. But I mean, just like again, like White Guy on the Bus, sanctions. There's a lot of things in my plays where I get really pissed off about something, you know, the duration, you know, my new one. And so it kind of vents my anger, and that automatically has a passion to it. You gotta have, I was talking to a student today via Zoom on her project, and I said, well, this is the one time you don't have to worry about any restraints, okay? Like you do in playwriting too, or page to stage, find something you're passionate about. Michelle Volansky, great dramaturg, used to be at Steppenwolf. We co-wrote a book together. And she always said, you know, your best plays are the ones you had to write. You know, there are those plays you wrote, and then there's the plays like an Outgoing Tide. They're just kind of bubbling up in you for a long time. And as much as I hate to disagree with Volansky, I have to agree with her on that because, yeah, I never thought about it. Personally, I never made that connection, but she did.
Well, you know, I think that's true with actors and directors too. If something in the play speaks to you, if you can personalize the work, because that's where good art comes from. It comes from your heart, from your soul, and through.
You need a sense of identification, I think, with it. You know,
yeah.
At least I do.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank everybody once again for downloading Outgoing Tide. I want to thank Bruce.
If I can publicize it, send me something. Okay. I go on Facebook 3 times a year and only to plug myself, so it's okay.
Well, I don't know about that, but we you know, we're grateful to everybody who takes a look at the video version.
It was a fabulous production.
Yeah, yep. I was really proud of it, and I'm, you know, how many shows have we done together? Half a dozen.
Something like that, yeah.
Funny Man,
yeah.
And, which was, you know, came from a story about Bert Lahr, the Cowardly
Right.
Lion.
Yeah, Funny Man. Yeah.
Funny Man with George Wendt, which is still in our top 10 as well as Stella and Lou and Outgoing Tide. You're Mr. Home Run at Northlight.
Well, we'll find something to do event down the road here. You know,
we absolutely will.
Because I want to go to that hot dog place I love. That's
Portillo's.
Portillo's. I want to go to Portillo's.
Well, the free. You just earned a free hot dog. We're going to send that to him right now because the drive-through is open in this time of Corona.
I'll get a bike. I don't care. I'll go through it. Man.
That's good. All right, Bruce. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Bye.